I'm going to replace that inner CV boot. It's usually a pretty terrible job. Get that knocked out, and then start moving all of the other accessories and get the headers installed, and new clutch, transmission attached to the engine, and get the engine put back in the car. And then hopefully we'll fire it up and be able to drive it. Let's get to it. So here's that axle with the ripped inner CV. I'm gonna just time lapse a video quick to replace that CV. It's a pretty boring and crappy job, so time lapse it is. The new boot is installed. That was a fun job. So I've pretty much pulled everything that I need off of this old engine. The only thing left is the valve covers. I'm leaving them on just to keep the engine clean until I actually do the swap. This engine has brand new thermostat, timing belt, rollers, all that good stuff. But it looks like the new engine has very recent stuff as well. So I'm gonna just remove these from this at a later date and keep them as spare for when the new engine needs a timing service. So everything is removed except the flywheel. I got to put the crank lock tool in to get that out, so I'm going to do that in a little bit. Over here is the new engine. I've began installing the headers, and I started modifying the old 2.8 manifold heat shields so that they can offer some protection from heat to the valve covers. They go right above the header there, and will just help keep the valve cover gasket from baking. So they don't fit perfect. I've been doing a little bit of trimming, and I hope that they don't rattle when they're in the car, but I think it's worth having them there. So that's what I'm working on right now. One other thing to add here, the old coolant pipe from my car is crusty, and again, the car is from New Hampshire, so there are quite a few rusty bits. Oddly enough, the engine, which is an ATQ, same as the one that came from my engine, this lower pipe on this one's in beautiful shape, but it's different than the one that my car had. So I previously have owned B5 S4s, and this looks like a component from an S4, the one that came off of my car here. Another odd thing about my car is it has an after-run coolant pump, and I've never seen that on a 2.8. My car is an 01.5, which very well could be the difference between these two coolant pipes. So I might take you guys along and go to a junkyard and see if we can find one of these. It turns out they were used on a lot of the 2.7 A6s and a couple other cars, the S4 of course, and we'll see if we can find one at a local junkyard. If not, it is still available from Audi, and I wouldn't mind just buying a brand new one just to avoid this thing bursting and spraying coolant all over if I'm on a track event. I would prefer that not happen. I could probably make the one that's on the engine work as well, but over here, this pipe that goes up to the coolant reservoir, the overflow tank, is a little bit different. Mine, the one that came off my car, has this nice little bracket, holds it in place. The upper hose is a little bit different, so it ends up sitting a little bit neater. Either way, we'll go probably go to the junkyard and see if I can source one of these. So I went to the pick apart, and not only did I get the coolant hose that I was after, perfect shape, got a couple of the hoses too, didn't really need them, but Southwest cars are much cleaner, so might as well get the extra clamps and hoses. But I got a front subframe from an S4, not that it's any different, but mine's a little bit crusty, and it had the little brace on it. May or may not add anything substantial at all, but I got one. And an S4 front sway bar. Again, my car is a A4 Sport, so it already has the same sway bar, but mine's a little bit crusty and rusty. So these components will clean up just some older crusty ones. So I got back from the junkyard. I didn't start a time lapse. I just went at it. I put the new coolant pipe from the junkyard on the engine already. Got everything all squared away. The headers are completely installed, fully tightened down, and the heat shields are in place. This side didn't need very much modification at all. This side needed some trimming, and I had to dent the header in a little bit, heated it up, and just hammered it down a little bit just so I could get that Allen head bolt in there, trimmed the heat shield a little bit, but having these in place will definitely be helpful. Got the harness put back on the engine. Yeah, flywheel next. And then the front, gonna put my little supercharger bracket on there, the idler pulley, and go from there. The old flywheel has been moved onto the new block, and I bought new bolts. They are one-time use, and I've put it on, torqued them to spec. It's 45 Newton meters and 180 degrees, and that's all torqued. Now I am prepping the transmission to be mated to the engine. Of course, I got to put the clutch on first, but put a new throwout bearing and greased up the pivot of the throwout bearing arm there. And I have mounted the aftermarket transmission mounts, which will hold it into the car. Stav at Malacca Motorsports hooked me up with those. And I have to change the axle cups. This is an FYF, which came out of a B6. So these cups are useless in a B5. Plus I'm putting in an A4, so they're 100 millimeter spacing instead of 108. So I have to take those either out of my old transmission or my old rear differential. Either way, I'm going to change those out and also change the seals, have new ones of those, and then I just have to fill the transmission up with some new fluid. And yeah, making some pretty good progress. Hopefully the engine's going to be going in here later. And it's looking good. Here's the new wave track differential. And here's the new clutch disc. So I'm going to reuse my old clutch. This thing isn't going to make a ton of power, and the other components look to be in pretty good shape. But I'm going to go ahead and put a 6-puck ceramic disc in here. California Custom Clutch made this for me. And with having a pucked clutch, there's more clamp per surface area. So you end up getting a higher clamp, higher torque capacity by just putting in a pucked clutch. And of course it's ceramic, so the friction surface has a better coefficient, so it ends up grabbing better. It's like putting better brake pads on your car. So overall this should be more than enough to handle the power that this engine's going to make. So I'm gonna switch over to time lapse and get some stuff done. So I've got the transmission mounted up, everything's torqued, I've got the axle cups swapped. Those are the 6x100 ones, which I'll need to use my factory A4 axles. And I just took them out of my wave track rear end for now. I'll grab them out of my stock rear end once it's out of the car. Everything's ready to go. I just got to remove the current shifter box inside the car, so I'm going to do that next, and then we'll be putting the engine back in. So yesterday was a long day, and I didn't record everything because I was just in a mode to just get things done. So the front end's back on the car and back on its wheels and tires. Axles are back in. Today I'm going to finish buttoning up the front end, get the intake, some coolant in it, and have to put the rear differential in. The shift knob and shift linkage are all installed. It's out of a B6, so it's got the 6-speed pattern, and that all looks pretty stock, so it's kind of what I was going for. So yeah, just got to get the rear differential in and get the front end buttoned up, and the exhaust too. This place is a disaster. The exhaust is going to require some work. I'm going to have to bring it up to work and weld the center section here where the two meet to each other. But yeah, today's going to be productive, and hopefully I can take it for a spin. One thing did break. This PCV hose that goes from the valley of the V6 engine up to the... On S4 it's called the spider hose. I guess we can call it the spider hose, but it's the PCV plastic pipes. I replaced the upper one here when I installed the supercharger around this time last year, but I got to get this lower one. All right, I'm gonna fire it up. There's no exhaust right now, so it's super loud. Check engine lights on because I removed the rear oxygen sensors, which I'm going to remove from the programming once I get a chance to do that. I also don't have the airflow meter hooked up. We're back. 6-speed. Sick. guys, I just finished up the B5 and I got to close out this video. I ended up not recording nearly as much towards the end. I just wanted to get the project done and get the rear differential installed, and of course finishing up the engine install and all that. I had the center section of the exhaust welded up at work. We got that taken care of, and overall the car sounds incredible. Everything's running great. A couple little things that I need to finish up. It turned out the thermostat was bad, so I'm going to take the whole front end off of it this weekend and replace the thermostat and timing belt and all the other stuff that I thought was good. Overall, not a big deal. I've got brand new stuff from my old engine that I'm just going to swap right over. But overall, the thing's running really awesome. The 6-speed close ratio gearbox is really great for the supercharger, and the rear differential, as you see, works quite well. So I got to get it out on track. I got to schedule another event. Of course, I missed my first event, unfortunately. I couldn't get it done in time, but that's how some of these builds go. Not a big deal. There's going to be plenty more this summer, and I can't wait to get it out there. So anyways, I'm going to close out this video, and we'll see you in the next one.
Best sounding V6 I think that Audi Volkswagen makes.
Oh.